Hello guys, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we are going to solve the following question under differentiation. Please make sure you subscribe to this channel, click on the notification button and also share with your friends. Now the first question here says, given that y was given as s raised to the power of 3 plus 1 all over 6 root x plus s raised to the power of minus 3. So you should find dy ds or differentiate. Now how do you differentiate this? Before you differentiate, make sure that the equation is in the linear form. Now we said for differentiation, if you have y is equals to a raised to the power of sn, what do? You use the n to multiply the a. So this gives us na, then x, then you subtract 1 from the power, which is n minus 1. So if you are given, for instance, y is equals to s raised to the power of 5, we are asked to differentiate. What do? Use 5 to multiply. Note there is an imaginary one here. So 5 raised to the power of s, then 5 minus 1, which is equals to 5s. 5 minus 1 is what? 4. This is how to differentiate. For instance, lastly, if you have s raised to the, or let's say 2s raised to the power of 3, what do? Use the 3 to multiply 2, so it becomes 2 times 3, then s raised to the power of 3 minus 1, and this becomes 6x squared. Now coming down here, we must make this equation linear. This one, we must make it linear. Now how do we make it linear? We know that our y is s raised to the power of 3 plus this 6 root x can be written as 1 all over 6x. Root x means half, okay, plus s raised to the power of minus 3, and your y will be equal to s raised to the power of 3 plus, now this particular thing under here, this s raised to the power of my half can come up. Why? Because 1 over a raised to the power of n is still the same thing as a raised to the power of minus n. Are you getting it? So if I have a raised to the power, let's say 1 raised to the power of a, or 1 over a raised to the power of 3, this will be what? A raised to the power of 3. If I have 1 over s raised to the power of, let's say 1 over 2. Now since this one is coming up, introduce minus a, here becomes s raised to the power of minus half. Same thing is what we have here. What we are going to do is, we can write this as 1 over 6, then this s comes up, it becomes what? S raised to the power of minus half, then plus s raised to the power of minus 3. At this point it's not a linear form. Now what makes it not to be linear? Because this variable x is beneath here. So what do we do now? We find our dy over dx, and this will give us s raised to the power of 3 plus, what do? Okay, this, if you differentiate this, it will give us 3 times 1 is what? 3, then x, subtract 1 from the power, here becomes 3s squared. So when you differentiate s raised to the power of 3, to give us 3 times 1, 3, then s, 3 minus 1, which is what? 3s squared. Now if you differentiate this one, what do? You use this minus half to multiply 1 over 6, so it becomes 1 over 6 times minus half, then x, you subtract 1 from the power, so this becomes minus half minus 1. Same thing is applicable here. In this case we have positive, then we put in bracket. What do? Use this 3 to multiply what we have here, then subtract 1 from 3. Use 3 to multiply what we have there. What are we going to have? You have 3. The 3 is negative, so here becomes negative 3 s raised to the power of minus 4. Why? Because minus 3 minus 1 is minus 4. So our dy dx is equal to 3s squared. Now plus times minus will give us minus 1. 1 times 1 is 1 all over, then what do we have here? 12, then times x. Now you have s raised to the power of minus 1 over 2 minus 1. Now we can come here. Let me erase some of these stuffs here. We can come to this side and say that our x raised to the power of minus half minus 1. What is the LCM here? It's 2 and 1, right? It's 2. So this becomes 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1 times minus 1 is minus 1. 2 divided by 2 is 2 times minus 1 is what? Minus 2. So our answer here, minus 1 minus 2 is what? Minus 3 over 2. So this whole stuff here becomes s raised to the power of minus what? 3 over 2. Are we getting it? Minus half minus 1 will give us minus 3 over 2 from what we did here, right? Now, at this point in time, what do? We continue. This becomes plus. Now, this positive will change to negative. Why? Because plus times minus will be what? Minus 3x minus 4. At this point in time, is there any other thing we can do? Yeah, there is something we can definitely do. Now, we can say that our dy over dx is equal to 3s squared minus. Now, this one can come down. Are we getting it? Of course, we know that this one, it means all over this. This one can come down. Now, we said when it was going up, it becomes negative. If it is coming down, it becomes what? Positive. So we have 1 remaining on top over, then we have 12. If this one is coming down, it becomes s raised to the power of what? 3 over 2, then minus 3s raised to the power of minus 4. Even this one too can still come down. So at the end of the day, your final answer will be equal to, your final answer would be equal to, if we write what is there, we said our dy ds will be equal to, we have 3s squared, then we have minus 1 all over 12x 3 over 2, then minus, even this s raised to the power of 4 can still come down. So we have 3 divided by, if this one comes down, what will it become? Becomes s raised to the power of 4. And this is the final answer to this question. 3s squared minus 1 over 12 s raised to the power of 3 over 2 minus 3 all over s raised to the power of what? 4. That's the correct answer to that question. Now let's take the next question. Now the next question is the same with the first, but just a little difference. So if you don't understand the first one, we can take this one and you understand better. Y is equal to s raised to the power of 3 plus 1 all over 6. Now note the difference, x plus s raised to the power of minus 3. The difference lies here. Are we getting it? This becomes y is equals to s raised to the power of 3. Now if you want to change this, it becomes 1 all over this 6 times this 6 times our x. It will not be 6 times x like we did for the previous case. If you look at this previous case, what do? We wrote 6 out, then we said s root becomes what? Half. Are we getting it? But in this case, what we are going to do is, this 6 here is, you see the way it was written here, it means s raised to the power of this 6 root x means s raised to the power of 1 over 6. That is the meaning. So this is s raised to the power of what? 1 over 6. There's a difference between writing 6 root x and writing 6 root x. There's a difference between, this is 6 multiplied by what? S, and this is root s, and this is 6 root what? X. So this is plus what? S raised to the power of minus 3. Now our y will be equal to what? S raised to the power of 3 plus, if this one comes up, becomes 1 times what? S becomes negative 1 over 6 plus s raised to the power of what? 3. Now what will be our dy ds? Dy ds will be equal to, differentiate this according to what we did, you have 3s squared, then plus, already we know that here is what? X. Now what do? Minus half minus 1 over 6 times 1, so this becomes 1 times minus 1 over 6. We are differentiating this now. Then x, then minus 1 over 6 minus 1 by subtracting 1 from the power. Then we have, now if this minus comes down here, it becomes minus 3. Then we write x, then minus 3 minus 1 from the power, and this becomes 3s squared. 1 times minus 1 over 6 becomes minus what? 1 over 6. Are we getting it? We can decide to write this like this instead of that confusing way. Minus 1 over 6, then we have x. Now this minus 1 over 6 minus 1, we can write it here. Minus 1 over 6 minus 1 is the same thing as, now what is the LCM here? The LCM of 6 and 1 is what? 6. So write 6 out. 6 divided by 6 is what? 1. Times minus 1 is minus 1. 6 divided by 6 is 6. Times minus 1 is minus what? 6. Now minus 6 minus 1 is minus 7 over 6. So this whole thing here, this whole stuff here, we can write it as minus what? 7 over 6. Then we have this minus 3x minus 7, or minus 4 rather. Minus 3s minus 4. At the end of the day, what will be our dy ds? Now dy over ds will be equal to 3s squared. Now minus 1 times everything here will be minus what? S raised to the power of minus 7 over 6 divided by 6 minus what? 3s minus 4. So finally, our final answer would be equal to, final answer to this question would be equal to dy over dx is equal to 3s squared minus, now this s can decide to come down. If it comes down, what will be remaining here? 1. Only 1 will be remaining here. So this becomes 1 all over 6. Are we getting it? Then if that one comes down, becomes s raised to the power of what? 7 over 6. Because as this one is coming down, it changes to what? Negative, positive. Are we getting it? The x changes to positive and everything comes down. If this one leaves here, what will be left? Only the one that was initially here, which is multiplied by. So this will be minus what? This 3, you write the 3 down. Then this 1, of course, you know this is over 1. This s can decide to come down. If it comes down, it becomes what? Minus, it becomes positive. So this becomes l raised to the power of 4. So the final answer to this question is, we have dy over ds is equals to 3s squared minus 1 all over 6s 7 over 6 minus 3 all over s raised to the power of 4. That is the answer to that question. Now let's take the next one. The next one say, given that y is equals to 3 plus s squared brackets 1 plus s raised to the power of 5, find dy ds. Now in this case, you say let this be equals to u and let this be equals to v. Are we getting it now? So we say here we use the product rule. Now the product rule says dy dx is equal to u dv over ds plus v du over ds. Now what is our u? Our u is 3 plus s squared. Differentiate u with respect to s. It becomes du over ds is equal to, differentiate a constant. We say whenever I differentiate a constant like 2 or 3, differentiate this constant is going to give you 0. Differentiate 7 is what? 0. Anything you differentiate that is a constant without a variable is 0. So this becomes 0 plus differentiate s squared, 2 comes down, 2 so we have 2 what? X, and this gives us 2s, du ds. Now our v is 1 plus s raised to the power of 5. So our dv ds, differentiate v with respect to s. Here it gives us, differentiate 1, it gives us 0. Differentiate s raised to the power of 5, give us 5 s raised to the power of 5 minus 1. Okay, so at the end of the day, your dv over ds is equal to 5x minus 5 minus 4. 5 minus 1 is what? 4. So your dv over ds is 5s raised to the power of 4. Now putting it to the formula, we say the formula says that our dy ds is u dv over ds plus v du over ds. So in this case, our dy ds would be equals to, what is your u? Your u, we said u is what? This, right? So we may want to write all our parameters out again, okay? Everything that we've gotten. U is 3 plus s square, okay? V is what? We said v is 1 plus s raised to the power of 5, okay? And our du ds is 2s, dv over ds is 5s raised to the power of 4. So substituting in, what are we going to have? We are going to have, sorry about that, when you substitute in, we are going to have dy over ds is equal to, what is our u? We say it's 3 plus what? S square. Then times dv is what? Dv ds is 5s raised to the power of 4 plus, where's our v? Our v is 1 plus s raised to the power of 5, and our dv is 2s. Let me use a marker that way. It's 2x, okay? 2s. Let me write it here. Bracket 2s. So our final answer, dy ds is equal to, now you can decide to open through with this, right? Or let me rewrite it again. This is 3 plus what? S square. Then times what? 5s raised to the power of 4 plus 1 plus s raised to the power of 5 times 2x, okay? Use this to open through the bracket. What are you going to have? You have 15s raised to the power of 4 plus this multiplied by this is what? To give us 5s raised to the power of 6, because s squared times s raised to the power of 4 is s raised to the power of 6, plus 2s times 1 is what? 2s, plus 2s times s raised to the power of 5 is what? 2x raised to the power of 6. Collect like terms. So your dy over ds will be equals to, let all the s raised to the power of 6 comes to one side first. So this becomes 5s raised to the power of 6 plus 2s raised to the power of 6. Then we have what? 15s raised to the power of 4 plus 2x. Our final answer will be what? Now 5s raised to the power of 6 plus 2s raised to the power of 6 is what? 7s raised to the power of 6 plus 15s raised to the power of 4 plus 2s. So that's your dy ds, okay, for that question. That's your dy ds. So our dy over ds is this. Final answer, okay? Final answer is this. Final answer, okay? Now, have we gotten this as our final answer? Let's take the next question. The next question says differentiate y is equals to s raised to the power of 3 cos x. Now we can say let u be equals to s raised to the power of 3, and then v is equals to what? Cos x. By the product rule, u dv over ds plus v du over ds is equal to what? Dy over ds, okay? So if our u is s raised to the power of 3, du over the s will be what? Differentiate this, it will give you 3s squared. Now if your v is cos s, okay, dv over ds, differentiate cos s, what are you going to have? Minus sine what? X. Okay, whenever you differentiate cos s, it gives you minus sine s. Now solving with this, your y, your dy ds will be equals to, your u is s raised to the power of 3, dv ds is what? Dv ds is minus sine x plus v is what? Cos s times du ds is 3s squared. Your final answer is minus s raised to the power of 3 times minus sine s is minus s raised to the power of 3 sine s plus 3s squared times cos s is what? 3s squared cos s. And that is the answer to that question. So our dy ds is equal to, we can decide to rearrange so that 3s squared cos s comes first, then minus what? S raised to the power of 3 sine x. Okay, so that is the answer to that question. Next question says e raised to the power of s sine x, let u be equals to e raised to the power of s and v is equals to sine s. Now what will be your du dx? Du dx is still e raised to the power of s. When you differentiate e raised to the power of s, it gives you e raised to the power of x. Are you getting it? Is a constant. Differentiate e raised to the power of s, it gives you e raised to the power of s. Now what will be your dv over ds? dv over ds, sine s is what? Cos s. Okay, so substituting into the equation, product rule, dy ds is equals to u dv over ds plus v du over ds. Please note that this is v. Now what will be our dy ds? Dy ds will be u is e raised to the power of x times dv ds is cos x plus our v is sine x times du ds is what? E raised to the power of x. Okay, so our final answer will be equals to e raised to the power of s cos s plus e raised to the power of s sine x. E raised to the power of s is common, so you can take it out, so this becomes e raised to the power of s cos s plus sine x. So this is our answer for dy ds. Okay, that is final answer to this question. E raised to the power of s cos s plus sine what? S. Why? Because e raised to the power of s is common, so you take it out. So what are we left with here? Cos s, and what here is what? Sine s, which is this and this. Now the next question, if y is equals to sine t cos t, differentiate. Now let our this be equals to v and our this be equals to what? U, or I mean u and v. So I can take it, let u be sine t and then let v be what? Cos t. Now differentiate du over dt. Differentiate u with respect to t. What are you going to have? You have cos t. Then we have dv over dt. Differentiate cos t with respect, you have minus what? Sine t. Are we getting it? When you differentiate sine, it gives you sine x, it gives you cos x. When you differentiate cos x, it gives you minus sine x. Okay, so same thing is applicable here. When you differentiate sine t, it gives you cos t. When you differentiate cos t, it gives you minus sine t. Now the formula for product rule is dy dx is equals to u dv over ds plus v du over ds. So your dy ds be equals to u is what? Sine t times dv over ds is what? Minus sine t plus your v is what? Cos t. This your v is cos t times du dt. Du dt is what? Also cos t. Okay, that is it here. Du dt. Now minus sine t times sine t will give us minus sine what? Square t plus cos t times cos t will give us what? Cos square what? T. So our dy over ds finally will be equals to minus sine square t plus what? Cos square t. And that is the answer to that question. Now you have the last question for this session, which says y is equals to s square minus 2 sine s plus s cos x. Now what are we going to do in this regard? What we do, we have two product rule added together here. So we solve the first one and then solve the second one and add them together. So taking the first one, the first product rule you have there is what? S square minus 2 bracket what? Sine s. Okay, now if your u is equals to s square minus 2 and your v is equals to sine s, now what will be your du dx? Of course, you know your du dx is differentiate this. What will it give to you? 2x. Differentiate minus 2, it gives us what? 0. 2x minus 0 is what? 2x. Now your dv over ds is sine s. If you differentiate sine s, we say it will give us what? Cos s. Now the formula for dy over ds is what? Is u dv over ds plus v du over ds. Substituting in, dy over ds will be equals to your u is what? S square minus 2. Your dv over ds is cos s. This is it. Dv over ds. This is it. Cos s. Plus your v is what? Sine s. Dv du ds rather is times 2x. Okay, so your final answer now is this. Use this to open through. Your dy ds will be equals to, use this to open through, becomes what? S square cos s, because cos s times s square will give us s squared cos s. Cos s times 2 give us minus 2 cos s plus 2s times sine s will give us 2s sine s. So this is for the first part. Now the next one is for the second part. Are we getting it? The next one is for the second part. The second part says what? S cos s. Now we can say let our u be equals to x and our v is equals to what? Cos s. So what do? Du over dx is what? Differentiate s. What will it give to you? 1. And then dv over ds is equals to, differentiate cos s. What will it give to you? Minus sine s. So what will be our dy ds? Say dy over dx is u dv over ds. This is dv over ds plus v du over ds. So your dy over ds is equal to, your u is what? X. Now your dv over dx is what? Minus sine x plus your v is what? Cos s. Dv over ds is what? Or let's say du ds rather. Du dx is 1. Okay, which is this one here. So our dy ds is equal to s times minus sine s is minus what? S sine s plus 1 times cos s is what? Cos x. So that is our value for both dy ds. So finally, what do? We sum them together. When we sum them together, any answer we get or got is the correct answer, because you saw there that this sum both of them together in the question. Okay, so summing them together, what are we going to have? The first one is what? S squared cos x minus 2 cos x plus 2s sin s. We say this one will be plus, okay, minus s sin s, okay, plus cos s. Now at this point in time, what do? We rearrange. If we rearrange, we are going to have the following. If we rearrange, you are going to have s squared cos s minus 2 cos s, then plus, first of all, 2s sin s, plus times minus is minus, s sin s plus cos s. Now let's rearrange here. So this gives us s squared cos s minus 2 cos s. Yes, cos s here is positive, so it comes here, becomes plus cos s plus what? 2s sin s minus s sin s. And at the end of the day, what are we going to have? What are we going to have? Our final answer will be equal to, let's take this once and for all, s squared cos s minus 2 cos s plus cos s will give us what? Minus what? Cos s, then plus 2s sin s minus s sin s will give us what? S sin x. And that is the answer to this question. That is the answer to this question. Thank you for your time. In our next class, we are going to discuss something that is spectacular. This is the final answer to the question. Please take note. Final answer, and this is equal to our dy ds. Thank you.